Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about why certain regions are not seeing the price decreases that they should be seeing because of everything that's happening in the car market. Before we get in this video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And if you want to see more content just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post these videos every single day. Let's get into it. So I do in fact read the comments that you guys post on this channel, and the comment that I keep seeing is, hey, I live in New York City and I don't see any price decreases, or I live in Los Angeles or some other large metropolitan area and well, car prices are still sky high. Dealers are still asking over MSRP and car availability is still low as well. And so if the car market is actually collapsing, Ben, why am I not seeing it in these areas? The first reason as to why you're not seeing prices come down in these areas is because of the type of dealerships that are typically located in these large metropolitan areas. What you will usually see is massive dealerships. Now, when you think of a massive dealership, you think that you're going to be able to get a great deal on a car because, well, they're going to have more inventory, which means that they are going to have better deals on inventory because they want to move as much inventory as possible. And if it's a big city, right, there's going to be a lot more dealers, so there's going to be a lot more competition. And so, again, that's what you would think. But in reality, that's not what always happens. What you typically see is on normal cars that are not really considered desirable, you can get a pretty good deal on those within these large city dealers. But on cars that are slightly desirable or specialty in any sort of way, you're not going to get a deal whatsoever because these dealers know that they can ask whatever they want for that car, and there's enough people that'll see that car because, again, they live in a large metropolitan area that they'll eventually get what they're asking for that car. And it's not just because there are large populations and that's what allows these dealers to get these crazy markups. It's also because of the insane wealth that you see within cities and, frankly, the wealth disparity that you see within cities. And the best way to explain this is to actually talk about kind of like small towns and contrast them with big cities in terms of what you see when it comes to income. So with small towns and even medium-sized towns, you usually see a little bit more uniformity with income. And this also translates to states because when you have like small population states, the income tends to be a little bit more uniform. Whereas when you have these huge, like large population states, you tend to have a much larger wealth gap. And so this will obviously change how dealers will approach their customer base. So I'll use, again, my town as an example. So the town that I live in has like 10,000 people roughly. The average person makes over $100,000 per year, which you'd think then, oh, well, Ben lives in this super rich bougie town where everyone is like a multimillionaire or whatever, because there's probably, some people that are super poor and some people that are super rich. And that's not reality. The reality is like, that's what the average person is in this town. Like they all make about $100,000 per year. Like, and you see it with the houses that are built and, with the lifestyle that people live. And so, like I said, income uniformity. And then when you jump up to like a medium-sized town, you kind of see the same thing, but you start to see a little bit more of a wealth gap. And then when you jump to the big cities, that wealth gap seems to increase even more. And if you look at the income brackets for big cities versus like small towns, you really see this. So I'll use Utah as an example because it's kind of like just a small state in general when it comes to population. I mean, there are more people in New York City than in the entire state of Utah. And so for you to be the average person in Utah from an income perspective, you have to make somewhere around like $70,000, $75,000 per year. But if you want to be in the top 1% of income earners for the state, you have to make around $300,000 per year. So that is a difference, but it's not as big of a difference as what you see in a lot of these large metropolitan areas, because in a lot of these large metropolitan areas, you'll see that the average income is sometimes a lot less than the US average. So like the US average, I think right now is around like $50,000, $60,000 per year. And with a lot of these cities, you'll see the average income will be like maybe, $30,000, $40,000 per year. But then if you want to be in the top 1% of income earners, then you have to make like well over $1 million per year. And so that really does show you like the income difference between the population with big cities versus, again, the smaller towns. So I know that was a very long-winded explanation as to why these dealers are charging these markup premiums and not lowering their prices, but when you look at the dynamics, it really does make sense. So let's say that a dealership was plopped in the middle of the town that I live in, where, again, the average person makes like $100,000, a little bit over $100,000 per year. And like I said, that's pretty much everyone here. Then that dealer would not be able to charge $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 over MSRP because nobody really has the income to support paying that price premium. But you put that same dealer in the middle of a big city where, yeah, you'll have a lot of people that are making, you know, $20,000, $30,000 per year. So they obviously wouldn't be able to pay a crazy markup. But then you also have people making well over $1 million per year. And that group is big enough that you'll have enough people that will basically be able to support these insane prices. Again, I know it's weird, but when you dig into it, it actually makes sense. And so this is why I always recommend for people to look at markets outside of their own market so that you can get the best possible deal for yourself on the vehicle you're purchasing and then also your trade-in. So like, let's say that you happen to live in one of these crazy markets where vehicles are all selling for over MSRP. Well, take advantage of that when it comes to selling your own vehicle, because that means you'll be able to get more money for your vehicle. But then also take advantage of the fact that you know that there are smaller markets that just can't support those crazy prices. So then go to those smaller markets and purchase from those smaller markets. So you get the best of both worlds, where you can sell your vehicle for a price premium, because the average person is not willing to really go outside of like a 50 to 100 mile radius when it comes to purchasing a car, which is crazy to me, because like, I get something like that with like a house, because like houses are, you know, pretty like stationary, but cars, like, you can literally take them anywhere. And so you'd think that people would be more willing to like shop outside of their market, but in reality, they're not. And so that's something that you can very easily take advantage of. So you're, again, getting more money for whatever vehicle you're selling, and then you're paying less for the vehicles that you're purchasing. And this is something that I do quite often when it makes sense, because although I mentioned that Utah is not a massive market, it's a big enough market that I can actually kind of, you know, pull some strings to basically make it so that certain car deals happen in my benefit. And so there are several purchases that I've made in the past, and also purchases that I'm planning to make in the future, where I'm basically selling a car in the Utah market and then I'm buying a car in a completely different market. Or sometimes it's vice versa, where I'm buying a car in the Utah market and I'm selling my car into a market outside of the Utah market just because of the price difference. The example that I've given time and time again is when I purchased my Ram TRX. When I purchased my Ram TRX, I purchased it from a dealership out of Texas. And with that particular market, they could not really charge markups on Ram TRXs. And again, this was at the launch of the truck when there were dealers charging $30,000, $40,000 over MSRP. But again, the market that that dealer was in did not have like the pricing power to do that. So they were just at MSRP at launch. However, because their market was so soft, my trade-in that was a Ford Raptor was worth significantly less than what it was worth here in Utah. They offered me almost $5,000 less than what I was able to wholesale it for here in Utah. And so that was a situation where, again, I used the market differences to my advantage, where I got more for my vehicle and I paid significantly less for the vehicle that I purchased. If I had purchased that same truck in state at launch, I would have had to have paid at minimum $10,000 to maybe $20,000 over MSRP. So that's going to sum things up for today's video, and hopefully that somewhat explains to all of you as to why your big city markets are not coming down in price, and why they will probably never truly come down in price like what you'll see with a lot of other markets. There's just way too much money in those big cities. So use that to your advantage. Be willing to do a little bit more work to get yourself a better car deal. And I think it's always worth it, because again, cars are typically the second most expensive purchase that people will ever make in their life. And so you want to make sure that you get the best possible deal on it. Anyways, I'll see you guys.